Unlock the power of your mind. This is Provocative Enlightenment with Eldon Taylor.
And welcome to another hour dedicated to inquiry, reflection, questions, possibilities, philosophical quandaries, and a whole lot more, all in our effort to understand exactly what enlightenment means and what it is to be enlightened. Indeed, an hour dedicated to learning something more about ourselves, an hour designed to help us go further inward and perhaps challenge some of those old ideas about the world we live in and the people we have become. This is an hour where we strive to evaluate knowledge as inseparable from the total experience of reality. I'm Eldon Taylor, and this is Provocative Enlightenment. All right, every week I read a few of your letters as our way of respecting the role you play in making our show successful. Last week our show was all about past lives, and our guest was Sandra Ann Taylor. Lucero wrote, "Great show. Sandra is a great speaker and writer." Mark wrote, "I enjoyed your show today with Sandra Ann Taylor on reincarnation. I can say that there are certain places and times in history that I have been drawn to in a reoccurring manner. Not so sure what I did or the circumstances, but more of a feeling or knowing." Andrada asked, "Just wondering, is it possible to be a parallel dimension and not a past life?" Well, I believe, Andrada, that Sandra and others would say yes, since they also believe that all things are happening now. In that sense, it has to be a parallel dimension because there can be no such thing as a past life per se unless we understand that to be synonymous with everything occurring now. Kevin added this remark, "We are here in Earth School, and our true home is not here. I know without a doubt that each and every moment my true essence is learning and expanding based on my experiences here, and when I go home, I will see what I learned and what I still need to learn in future lives." Thanks for your comments, Kevin, and I want to thank you for finding me in Pasadena for the conference. It was very nice to meet you in person. Speaking of Pasadena, my presentation around my latest book, What If? Paulette commented, "I was absolutely blown away by your presentation. If I'm not my body and I'm not my memory, what am I? Wow, I'm still processing everything I learned from you, and I will never forget your demonstrations." Well, that's very nice, and all I can say to that, Paulette, is thank you. Deanna wrote, "I am quite pleased to read your books. I am on a second book, What If? The first was, What Does That Mean? It is truly refreshing that someone is not afraid to wonder and think, ponder and ask. At the same time, you leave the reader to come to their own conclusions. You do not chastise what one might decide to be true to them. Thank you." Well, thank you, Deanna. It's not my place to find anyone's truth but my own, but I do feel a calling to sort the nonsense and baffle-gab out of the fray, and then to allow water to seek its own level thereafter. Jennifer wrote, "I love how you are unafraid to take on all the taboo subjects." Well, Jennifer, I believe we must do that if we are to be honest with ourselves. And who are we if we lack personal integrity? That said, it certainly can impede the process of winning new friends. Marcia wrote, "As a disabled woman of 61 years young, I am not able to spend a lot on self-help, personal growth, metaphysical, and other topics I'm extremely interested in, so I take advantage of free items to supplement my library of things I'm able to purchase. I so appreciate the freebies offered by you. You can't know just how much they help those of us who are trying so hard to help ourselves through alternative means. God bless you." Thank you, Marcia. And Thea wrote, "Eldon, it was amazing relief that I felt from the free InnerTalk tracks you offer. Thank you so much." You're more than welcome, Thea, and let me use your letter, if I may, to remind everyone of the free InnerTalk programs that we make available as just a part of our Pay It Forward program. You can get yours by simply going to InnerTalk, INNERTALK.com, and choosing free programs from the left-hand navigation pane. These are not samples. This is the real deal, the scientifically proven effective technology, demonstrated effective in multiple double-blind studies carried out by independent researchers at leading institutions such as Stanford. So why wait? Get yours today. While you're there, be sure to sign up for my free newsletter. Each issue features articles, humor, and from time to time, free items and special sales that are only available to our subscribers. So be sure to subscribe. and thank you for your support. All right, that's all the time we're going to take for letters today, but I do invite you to opine by sending your email to eldon@eldontaylor.com or by joining me on Facebook. You can also just leave comments on my website. I do try to read all of your letters. Obviously, we can't get them all on the air, but they do impact our programming. I highly value your input, and I do encourage you to please provide your feedback. And once again, thank you. Now to today's show, deepening your intuitive and psychic knowledge by journaling with cards as you participate in a visual artistic approach to creating insightful spiritual intelligence. Now, most people who see a psychic expect them to provide advice, warnings, see into the future, and so forth. Skeptics refuse to accept any credibility in this practice, putting it all down to psychology and cold reading. Now, some of those skeptics, the likes of, say, Michael Shermer and Ray Hyman, have described the reading process along the lines that one can find in Wikipedia or the skeptical perspectives and so forth on the Internet. In short, a cold reading occurs when, presumably, the reader doesn't know anything about the client in advance. And this can be contrasted with a so-called hot reading, which is made when the reader does have advance information about the client. A cold reading is a series of techniques used by mentalists, psychics, fortune tellers, illusionists, and con artists to determine or express details about another person, often in order to convince them that the reader knows much more about the subject than they actually do. Without prior knowledge of a person, a practiced cold reader can still quickly obtain a great deal of information about the subject by analyzing the person's body language, age, clothing or fashion, hairstyle, gender, sexual orientation, religion, race, ethnicity, the level of education, manner of speech, the vocabulary that's used, place of origin, and so forth. Cold readers commonly employ high-probability guesses about the subject, quickly picking up on signals from their subjects as to whether their guesses are in the right direction or not, and then emphasizing and reinforcing any chance connections the subjects acknowledge while quickly moving on from the missed guesses. Before starting the actual reading, the reader will typically try to elicit cooperation from the subject, saying something such as, "I often see images that are a bit unclear, and which may sometimes mean more to you than to me. If you help, we can together uncover new things about you. We together can find out what these images mean." Well, one of the most crucial elements of a convincing cold reading is the subject's eagerness to make connections or reinterpret vague statements in any way that will help the reader appear to make specific predictions or intuitions. While the reader will do most of the talking, it is the subject who provides the meaning. Also, subjects with a situation of grief, illness, or financial need will tend to be much more accepting of hints, suggestions, or guesses made by the reader. Now, as many of you know, especially those of you who have attended one of my workshops, it's not difficult to produce what appears to be amazing insight into a stranger, even predicting their thoughts in advance. So how does one distinguish the legitimate from the streetwise reader? I mean, Professor Ray Hyman has made it a point to show just how psychic he is to his psychology students and others for years, quite effectively fooling all. And he's not psychic in any way. He just has a very good understanding of how the human being works. Well, our guest today has an answer, one I like. She doesn't tell your fortune. She rather helps you inform yourself of all that is going on. She believes that you are your own best guru, your own best psychic, and so forth. So she provides tools and training to help you get out of your own way and see what you might not have formerly seen and experience what you might be hiding from. To that end, she has created a journal and a set of cards that accompany it with instructions, and I must say, it's very well done. Very well done. Quite impressive indeed. In fact, she's impressive. Ravinder, you had her do a reading, and you were very impressed by that. Is that correct?
I was. There was some stuff that went on that was really kind of uncanny.
Okay, maybe we'll get to that in a minute. So the question may well be, can we all open our own intuition up in ways that make us psychic? And if so, how? All right, I know what I think of all this, but we want your input as well. You can join us by calling toll-free, 1-866-254-1579. And international callers can dial their country code, then 760-918-4300. And again, you can also join us in our chat room at eldontaylor.com/chat. Ravinder will see that those questions get stuck priority right in front of me. So now let's meet today's guest, Elaine Clayton. For those of you regulars to our chat room, Elaine needs no introduction. She is an author, artist, certified Reiki Master, gifted intuitive, and former teacher. Elaine has written and illustrated several books for children, including books by Pulitzer Prize winning author Jane Smiley and Gregory Maguire, author of the popular Broadway musical Wicked. Elaine has taught young children in independent and public schools in Atlanta and Boston, and leads workshops in schools and libraries, using drawings to support empathic, intuitive learning. She is a muralist, figurative portrait artist, and creator of psychic drawings and spirit paintings. Her open sketchbook website and blog, Illuminera.com, is dedicated to exploring intuition, dreams, and spirituality through art. She lives in New York City with her husband and sons, so let's get her in here. Welcome to Provocative Enlightenment, Elaine Clayton.
Hi there. Thank you so much. I am so honored to be here.
It is our pleasure and our honor, Elaine. Now, you've done a reading for both Ravinder and I, kind of your way to, show us what you did. And we'll get to that in a second, but let's begin by having you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and how you became interested in psychic drawings and spirit paintings.
All right. Thank you so much. Well, it's interesting because, from the moment that any memory that I have is really going back to childhood is me drawing. I just remember being so captivated by people more than things, and drawing them. And so I think that just sort of progressed into what eventually turned into this Illuminara journal. And all those years in between, I was aware of my own feelings, visually stimulated impressions. So, when for example, when I was in school, I wasn't really listening so much as watching. And I guess what happened is when I became an adult, I realized that some of the things that impressed me when I was young, some of my own meanings and signifiers, were something that I was still really conscious of. Like a lot of times we forget what our earliest memories are. We don't remember what we thought of things as children because we get taught to look up at the board and this means this and that means that. Well, at some point I started to realize that I never forgot what my original meanings were. And so the drawings became informative for me, and they became dream journal drawings and notation. And then that led me to think about, I guess at that time we thought of psychic stuff as Edgar Cayce, knowing things in order to heal yourself and others, and also games, playing psychometry games. That's where you hold an object that belongs to somebody and you don't know anything about it, so you just start to tell them whatever you see. Mm-hmm. So I think all this developed in me as an artist, so that I was someone who drew, I was someone who thought about intuition and what my own meanings are in life based on visual stimuli, and then, trying to understand what all that meant in terms of producing new work, which turned into, I called them prayer letters at first, and then now I call them spirit paintings. But the idea was to have somebody come to me, and I wouldn't know what their prayers are because they're their own prayers, but I would ask them to write a prayer that they had, a major concern, something that has emotional energy in it for them. Mm-hmm. And I would take the piece of paper that they wrote this prayer on. Maybe they rolled it up and tied it with a ribbon or put it in a little envelope or something. And I would take that and then attach it to a painting that I would create for them. And I would just say, I'm going to say a prayer and ask for whatever you need in the way of imagery to come and, to come alive on the canvas. And sometimes the person might tell me what their concern was, but it was more fun really when they didn't, because then you got to play with it a little and see what would happen. And so I found it so enriching, and I realized that, and it's interesting about what you said about cold readings versus hot and legitimate readings versus streetwise people playing tricks and games. What I think what I discovered is that you don't have to know what someone's issues are. You can ask. I was actually making a prayer of it, asking for guidance, and then the right things would appear. And maybe even scammers can do that. Maybe they don't say a prayer, but they just slip into some kind of awareness where that psychic or intuitive information just comes to them. I'm not sure. That'd be interesting to talk about. I'd like to believe that people who are scammers do it in these other ways, but I do think that you can know what other people's issues or concerns are without having to know what they are. So does that answer your question a little bit?
Well, I mean, yes, and of course it also launches us into a long conversation. So I was just going to back us up and kind of take us step by step, all right? Prayer letters, you say, are spirit paintings. Tell me, what is the difference between a psychic drawing and a spirit painting?
Oh, okay. Well, they're connected. They're interconnected, and they're not so different, really. But the prayer letters and the spirit paintings are done over time, where I'll go into the studio, and this person's, connection with me is, I feel it in my heart, and I start painting, and I ask for guidance, and the whole hour or two each day that I spend on it is filled with that kind of emotional energy or, kind of heartfelt care on my part. I don't know how else to put a word on it. And it may take months, it may take, several weeks to do. That is a gift that I guess in a way represents me trying to process what the visions are and what love might mean for that person in the way of answers over time. The psychic drawing stuff, now that's interesting. I just started doing these about a year or two ago, probably a year and a half ago. I was reading, and I was doing readings a lot at psychic fairs and for people, so they might be quick readings, like 10-minute readings where you use cards and things. And I was working on pretty much starting to complete the Illuminara journal. But what I realized in card readings is, when I'm looking at numbers or suits, they mean certain things to me. So like, what I was talking about childhood days, the numbers 0 through 10 had specific meanings for me. So I realized when I'm reading a card and I see a number, they each mean something to me. So I was using a linear quality of each number or alphabet to tell me something, and I would just go with it. So I realized, because of doing the spirit paintings where imagery comes, why don't I just draw before a reading and see what happens? But the only thing is what I do is I close my eyes and draw with my left hand, and I'm right-handed. And I say a prayer, and I just ask for whatever imagery that needs to appear to come out somehow during this quick drawing with my eyes closed. And I do this in the sketchbooks that I have. And so I found that it was interesting, and it was sort of a leap of faith, because that first reading I did, however time, a year and a half ago or whatever, I just used that at first. I just told the person, I've been meditating for a half an hour before you called, and I want to tell you what I saw when I did a drawing. And then I just go through each little piece of the drawing and use it sort of like a map, and I turn it 4 different ways to read it. It's different from the spirit painting in that it isn't imagery that is recognizable, that I do sort of with conscious intent mixed with a little bit of the mystery of I'm not sure what's going to appear. This is totally different because I've closed my eyes and it's like a free fall drawing, just trusting that somehow when I look at the shapes and lines, they'll talk to me the way numbers did when I was little, and I didn't know what they meant, but I just knew they talked to me. And so, that's the basic difference. But I've had so much fun, and really that is the thing is I have so much joy when I do these drawings, and they either mean something specific for people or, there are things that are symbolic that do start a conversation. Because I'm not really trying to say, I'm going to reveal things because I'm magic and you're not or whatever. It's fun to have psychic things happen, and that is what makes the world go around for me. I love all that. But the purpose of the drawing is to get the energy to try to help myself and the person I'm reading for, the energy to be present so that we can talk about certain things that might be real big signifiers for them in their lives. And so it's kind of conversational and it's a little bit abstract, but I've really enjoyed it, and I'm kind of experimenting with it still. It's still a discovery for me.
Okay, we have a couple of minutes before we go to the break. I want to explore what you had just discussed because it was a psychic drawing you did for me that you sent over, and I must admit that I see a great deal of similarity in it and the whole process of Rorschach drawings or ink blot tests. And so I want to explore how these numbers mean something to you and how you teach that and share that, especially, in public education systems where what you're dealing with is, waking up intuition. But I have to ask you this before the break.
Okay.
Illuminara is an interesting word, especially when you look at a history of that word on the Internet. Where did you get the name from, and what does it mean to you? Quickly.
Well, that's interesting because really it was all sort of intuitively chosen. I didn't want my website, which is a blog, really. I didn't even realize it was a blog, but it's, my daily art posts that I wanted to give to everybody in this open sketchbook or open portfolio kind of way. I didn't want it to be Elaine Clayton. I wanted it to have a spiritual name. And I didn't really run and go look up all the definitions like I should have probably, and now after the show I'll certainly go do that. But it was sort of my husband and I actually, who's so supportive of me in so many ways, we were talking about what would be a good name for this site or this open sketchbook that would feel spiritual so it could be dedicated to something, bigger than whatever, my name would mean or whatever. And so it was really about not making it an ego choice for me. That's why I chose it. I thought it sounded good.
Let's pick that up after the break, okay?
Okay.
Illuminara, that's the name of the book and the website. You're listening to Provocative Enlightenment on Hay House Radio. We're talking with Elaine Clayton about developing intuitive abilities. So stay with us. You won't want to miss what's coming up in the next half of the show. And we'll be right back after these words from some of our friends.
Do you feel like you've become lost in a funhouse? Only seeing the reflection of yourself, past, future, and present, but unable to find the real you? I invite you to step through the doorway and onto the path leading to understanding of your mind, your choices, and the influences that surround you. Read Eldon Taylor's New York Times best-selling book, Choices and Illusions, now expanded, updated, and revised. It will provide you with real-life examples of how you can break free from your current perceptions and begin your journey to how high is up. Get your copy today from all bookstores or online from Amazon.com or Barnes & Noble.
Close your eyes. Imagine your goals and dreams. What's preventing you from accomplishing them? Most often, we are our own worst enemies. I can't. I'm not good enough. It's time to reprogram that inner dialogue. Replace all those negative self-images with, I'm good. I am powerful. I can do anything. Eldon Taylor's InnerTalk patented subliminal technology does just that. Researched at numerous universities such as Stanford and by governments such as Mexico and Germany, InnerTalk has repeatedly been proven effective at changing your self-talk. Stop imagining your goals and make them a reality today. Visit www.innertalk.com. That's INNERTALK.com. InnerTalk.com.
Unlock the power of your mind. This is Provocative Enlightenment with Eldon Taylor.
Welcome back. If you just joined us, we're speaking with Elaine Clayton about her delightful book and card set, Illuminara. But before we get back to today's show, I want to thank all of you who took the time to look me up during the convention in Pasadena. It was my pleasure and honor to meet you all. Okay, I would also like to invite you all to join me on Facebook and or follow me on Twitter. If you like our show, do spread the word. We genuinely appreciate your support. Let's get back to the show then. Now, before the break, we were discussing the meaning of Illuminara, and I think what you basically said, Elaine, is that you and your husband wanted something that had a spiritual, meaning, flavor, and together you came upon this word, you extended this word, or you were inspired by it. Have I got that right?
You got that right. Yeah, and it was more he was being supportive of me while I was kind of just enjoying the process. So when you looked up what it meant, do you have any big news for me?
Well, there are, first of all, it's not in a dictionary. You're not going to find it, in Wikipedia.
Right.
But you do find a number of uses for the word or the terminology on the Internet, including a site that is an organization. And the organization supports people a lot with the same message or the same meaning that you do. And a number of addicts have testimonies there as to how this organization has facilitated them. But the term was, according to the founder, given to them in a meditation. So that's why the question.
Right. Well,
any connection, any association,
yeah.
that was the idea. But
no,
there isn't,
I was
right?
having fun. We were having fun and feeling like happy, at heart, and just wanting it to feel good, and it just seemed like it did.
Right. Let's do this to make sure we don't have any confusion as a result of this little discussion.
Okay.
Give your website to everybody now.
Oh, it's very easy. It's Illuminara.com. So it's ILLUMINARA.com. And it's a spiritual open sketchbook.
Yeah, and it's a great website. You'll enjoy it. I love your blogs, by the way. I pay attention to those. Follow them.
Thank you.
And I love your cards. I love your whole approach to this. But, I want to get back to some of the questions that I have here before we maybe take a phone call and let you give us an example or get Ravinder involved here and in sharing, maybe both, okay?
All right.
You heard the setup piece. How is what you do different from the typical psychic?
Well, I don't know if it's totally different, but I can just say what I do and what it means to me, and then maybe can I tell you a little story about what I would call a typical psychic experience can be like for me, from my own experience. So, and then this explains why I wanted to do this Illuminara thing, because for years I was doing children's books, and I always kept these dream journals since I was in high school, and was inspired all the time and made all this art, and I didn't know what it was for. And a few years ago, it was like divine timing. Just suddenly, I understood what it was for. And I wish I had known 20 years ago, because it was kind of agonizing for me not to understand. But it had to do with going to regular psychics since I was young, just only a few times, playing around with it myself and really believing in it as a connection to prayer, my prayer life. And And having that in contrast to people who I know are seers, who are good and who are loving towards me and care about me. So what happened is, when I was really young, I went to a psychic, and she said, you have a very bad person who wants to harm you in your life. And I was young enough that I had actually had someone like that, but I was, fine, so I didn't really have a worry about it. So I said, no, it's not really true. I mean, I didn't feel it was true at that moment. And then she said, and I can do a smoke screen for you. And I said, what's a smoke screen? And she said something about candles and prayers and, and all that. And I thought, and then she said it was $20. And this is a long time ago now, so $20 is like $70, today.
Right.
And I didn't have it. And then I felt insulted, too, because I thought, well, why do you think, and if you really think that I'm vulnerable and young and there's someone who wants to harm me, why would you charge for a prayer? And plus I can pray for myself. So there was something she did that I didn't like. It was play on a possible vulnerability that I might have and exploit it for money. That's how I perceived what she did. And I didn't respect her for it, even though she was gifted. And, and a lot of the things she said, she did have the ability. And so, but she was happy to use it to get me to depend on her.
Let me just interrupt you here for a second.
Okay.
You say that she did have the ability because she was gifted.
Oh, absolutely.
But a Ray Hyman, you might say that about him, too.
He may.
Or are you absolutely certain that she was doing more than playing on, the psychology of the event?
Well, that person, I'm not so sure, but I experienced other psychics since. But at the time, in my 20s, and as time unfolded after the reading, I thought, well, she kind of was right about this or that, but I would never go back to her because I can see what her game is. That's how I felt, back then.
Right.
And then I had for a long time, about 12 years, I always refer to her, and I probably refer to her too much, but I just loved the time she gave me. She was Cherokee. She was introduced to me by my MFA. I went to a School of Visual Arts in New York City, and Marshall Arisman, who's a really beautiful visionary artist, his grandmother was a spiritualist in Lilydale, so he and I always talked about auras and things, and one day he said, I want you to meet Karen. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And so he introduced me to this Cherokee, who I call her by her Cherokee name, 4 Stars, and she lived in Oregon, but she was in New York City for this one occasion. And from that moment on, after meeting her, I talked with her as often as I could, and she taught me so much about seeing and how it's really about love, and it's about finding truth. And it starts with you knowing your own truth. And I felt like my family taught me that in many ways, too, in my process, from childhood on. And my dad's a psychiatrist, and he always, gave me a lot of good advice about how to read dreams and things like that. So I had good guidance. So I knew what it was to have caring seeing, and then I sometimes, for fun, would go to somebody else. So another example is I went to another person, and she was really good. She told me, a few things that were true. She was gifted, but then she said, and I guess I had mentioned to her about Karen, who had died, a year or so before the reading with this other person. She said, and your mentor can't get through to you from the other side. And I thought, if I was a vulnerable person, I might go, she can't? Oh, my God, what do I do to get her to get through to me? Because I really need her. You see what I mean? But I knew she could get through because she had gotten through many times and in dreams and other very important times. So she was playing me. And then the other thing she said was, and you have negative energy and whatever, chakra or whatever. Well, I just thought if you say words like that to people, you might clip them when they're already wounded, and you can exploit it for money. You get them to need you and to be dependent on you. And that's what she wanted. She wants to build her client list up like that. That's how she makes her living, so that's what she does.
Sure.
So why I started to do this, why I wanted to do this book is I realized after that, I thought, I don't like that. It's really bad, and I think it's wrong. For me, it's wrong anyway, even if they help people in some ways. So what is it I'm doing when I do a reading? Because everyone's got God in them, so we could all in some way begin to see for ourselves. So I wanted to create something that would at least be my attempt to help people feel that presence of the divine inside of them. If they want to go to somebody to help them see, great. I love to do that. But you do it because you know you're going to get stronger, not because you're going to get more dependent on someone else to see for you. And so the images suddenly, all these images I've made over years and years suddenly made sense to me. I understood what they were for. Because I believe that my way of reading when I'm reading is I just know what things mean to me, and I just say it. And there's usually an intuitive gift in it for somebody. And that's where it gets interesting to talk about, well, what is it to be psychic? And is it something everyone can do, even scammers? Because to a degree, I think it is.
As a teacher, do you teach it as intuition and creativity, or do you teach it as being psychic? I mean, do you keep these two apart, or do you integrate them for your students?
Well, it's interesting because I never, with students, I don't go in and say anything about psychic unless it's just sort of, playfulness or something. But it's about being empathic, having feelings and knowing what your feelings are, and being able to feel what someone else may be feeling. To me, that's where the energy of and the love, the presence of love exists between me and you and me and anybody else, when we can feel for each other because we understand what it feels like for ourselves, or we can at least, try to get the feeling that the other person is having because we care. So with children, and in fact, I used the word intuitive instead of psychic, instead of the Luminara Psychic Journal. I decided to use intuitive, and one of the people I talked to was my friend Mary Lynn, who is she was a peer, a colleague at an independent school, and she still is there, and she gave me very good advice, and we talked about how important it is to be intuitive, to be in touch with your own thoughts, your own feelings, your own meanings, and how that helps you support another person with their feelings and meanings. And so we teach, ideally we want children to feel very strong inside of themselves, knowing they're each unique, we're each unique, so that a child can say, I'm unique and this is how I feel, but I still respect that you're unique and you have your own feelings. So that's why I used that word intuitive as opposed to psychic. It seemed a little bit more, it seemed more spiritual, and honestly, psychic can be D-Class A and kind of sound like the fortune tellers that take advantage, Right, I don't know that that's fair, but that's just the impression.
And our public education system would definitely not look on that term in a favorable light. So you do teach intuition, and I love how you describe that. But tell me now, I look at your work, and I'm going to come back and say I love this sketchbook. I love what you've done with the intuitive journal and the cards, and how you draw out everything that you're describing. I can look at one of the cards and I can go through, what does this image remind me of? What thoughts I have? Because you give me all these cues, and I can journal it, and then I suddenly begin to build a tapestry of meaning or significance, like the numbers or the shapes to yourself. So, but with that said, I can see how, to me, intuition and creativity seem so interlinked that if you were teaching this to children, you would be really awakening both in them. Or have I got that wrong?
Well, yeah, and I think I did. There's a section in the book called Intuition and Creativity. It's really not a book, the introduction. It's all short, but for me, imagination exists in the same realm as intuition. That you often get a great idea, you don't even know where it came from. Children, when they're really young, especially like around the age of 5, before they get into that thing called the age of reason, when they start to draw, wanting things to be correct and all that, and they shift a little because they're starting to learn and how to, branch out a little. But when they're in that slightly younger state, they still very strongly have a huge reservoir of delight because their imagination is right there, and they draw all the time before they even start writing. Those things are linked. When you ask a kid to write a little story, the first thing they do usually is draw. And so their sense of intuitive knowing, or their own reveling in their feelings and their impressions, because they're just so happy to be feeling and thinking. It's all connected to their creative process. And when I come into the studio, I have to get like that. If I'm not like that, it's because maybe I've got worries and I've got other responsibilities. But I try to stay in that state where anything is possible. You feel a sense of enchantment. I feel a sense of other, like there is a God. That's how I feel it. It's so magical, and it can be right here, and I can take something blank and change it by putting some marks on it and get some of my ideas into material form right in front of me. And so for me, the way I experience creative energy and intuition, it's all in the same place. So
okay, let's do this. We have some patient callers.
Okay.
And Ravinder wants to share her experience. So I'm going to ask Ravinder to share with our audience a little bit of the experience she had with you, and then let's take a phone call or two. And the proof is in the pudding. Let's show us your stuff. How's that?
Yeah. I won't be doing psychic drawings, I don't think.
Okay.
But we'll see. And I have to say too that my prayer is, when I do a reading, I ask for the light to come through for the best for all, and for the person that has a concern. So I just have to go with it and trust.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Ravinder, you had an experience during your reading. Share that with us before we take a phone call.
I had a few of them, actually. It was full of, it was very, very interesting. One of the things that I did find uncanny, though, was Elaine had done her drawing, and she was telling me about it. And then, about half an hour in, I got out her card deck, and I chose 2 cards.
Because she asked you to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The very first card I picked up could have been what she had been describing at the start.
Yeah.
It was like, that was, there was definitely a connection going on there. But I think the thing that I liked the most about the reading was that it showed me my God self within, the spiritual, that part of me that I've always been aware of. It's like the inner child, but it's the inner child that teaches me that pure side of it and that tells me what life is about. And that's what her reading just kept on highlighting to me, was me.
The thing I like most about it, and of course she did one for me as well, is how guarded I can be because of criminalistic background. So as opposed to give her any information at all, she had to just take it on her own. And she would often ask a question which I wouldn't answer, and she would, continue on. And she was amazingly accurate. So let's go to the phones and let's take a phone call.
Thank you both. I want you to know that but what happened in both of those readings was a gift to me. That felt beautiful for me to share that time with you.
Well, we saw it as a gift to us.
Yeah.
It's always, it goes both ways.
All right. Well, let's take a phone call. On line 2, we have Loretta from Central Lake, Michigan. Welcome to Provocative Enlightenment, Loretta.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Loretta.
Hello.
Go ahead.
I've been listening to Hay House. I've been opening up. I've been told that, I have some intuitive, and I feel that way, but sometimes I feel lost in if I'm doing the right thing, if I'm staying grounded. Like I said, I've been listening for the last few weeks, and I've been learning so much, and my heart is just open wide.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I've gone through so much. Losing my house after over 30 years, raising 3 kids there. My grandmother, I was caregiver for her for 4 years, passed there. My mother, 4 years, passed there.
Mm-hmm.
Raised my 3 kids, and now I've moved 5 hours away. I'm in the process of moving again in a 6-month period after 30 years. And
well, I was going to ask you about that, because definitely the energy that I feel just from, and I'm actually using cards while you're talking, is about leaving behind what is no longer needed. And I feel like there's a male influence. Sometimes the intuitive side, because you talked about not being sure, we can, and I'm not trying to be prejudiced about gender here. I'm just saying there's a sort of archetypal roles, and sometimes there's like an inner voice that says, no, be rational, or be focused in this other way. And the intuitive is like it's an opposite or a different way of sensing to make decisions and things like that. And I don't know if that's if some of your changes has to do with a relationship directly with a male, or if it has to do with even letting go of the way you were conditioned.
Yeah, no. The only males in my life are my sons. I've been divorced over 26 years. I haven't had. All I did was work and take care of my kids. So
if you were going to put all this into a question, what would it be?
It would be, how do I, I'm trying to go with my intuitive feelings. I'm trying to go with what is in my heart and in my gut.
Mm-hmm. And so does it feel like a struggle to do that?
At times it's like, well, is that really the right thing to do, or is that just what you want to do?
Right, and do you see that's that male, I called it the male voice, but it's only because of that sort of traditional archetypal sense of the rational within, and so I really shouldn't call it male or female, but that sense of the rational that won't allow the other part of the self to go there. So maybe what you should do is start to be playful with that sense, because it wants to come out, so start being playful with it so it feels safe at first. And do you have people, here's what I suggest, and this is what the cards show. Now, I know you've had transitions and you're about to transition more, but maybe what you could do is put out there the intention. And I journal. I'm big about journaling. I would write this down if I were you. I would write down, and I'm not telling you what to do, but I'm just sharing how I would handle this. Because at stages I have to do this too. It's never like suddenly you're all there and you're perfect. You want support for this, so you might journal about how you feel, and then that way it brings up your concern into concrete form right before your eyes. There's a part of you that can get a bird's eye view of you while you go through this, and while you go through all these changes too, by the way, with relocations and losses, and they open doors to new things. But
Elaine, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to interrupt here. We're going to be running
going
short
on too
time.
long.
Yeah. Listen, do this. Tell everybody how they can reach you if they would like to know more, if they would like to have a reading. If they do that, please.
Absolutely. Just go to illuminara.com, and you can send me a message through there. And I'd love to help you. And I'm sorry I took so long, but you see, this is what happens. Yeah, this is what happens. So if you want me to help you a little bit or to be there for you, you can just contact me through illuminara.com.
I will do that. Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for your call, Loretta.
Thank you for taking my call.
Indeed, our pleasure. We are out of time. The website is illuminara.com. The journal is Illuminara, Intuitive Journal with Cards. It's a great journal. It's a great way to explore yourself. That much I can tell you. I would say for sure. It is also very revealing. And Elaine, we have sincerely appreciated you having you on the show today.
I appreciate it. And hello to everybody in the chat room, because that is the most wonderful, lively, fun chat room. Everybody go to Eldon Taylor's chat room during the show. It's a blast.
All right, we're out of here. We've come to the end of another hour of Provocative Enlightenment. I want to thank you all for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed our show, and will join us again next week, same time and same place. Until then, remember, believing in yourself always matters.